Welcome, Heather. I'm glad you're here.
It appears that our Spanish interpreter might have a question.
Heidi, it sure seems like it, but we can't hear you.
Yes.
So Heidi, if you go down to the lower left of your screen and there's the little microphone that says mute, and there's a little caret just to the right of it. If you press that little caret, you can select your audio. I think that you don't have an audio selected so that we can.
Chair, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I think it's just switching between the language channels. I could hear Heidi for a second. I was able to respond. There should be a second Spanish interpreter coming. I will make sure that I'll send an email real quick to them.
Great, thank you. We'll just, I'm going to stand by and wait for your phone.
Heidi, were you able to hear that? Okay, perfect.
Morning, Commissioner Sam.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. So good morning, Commissioner Fain.
Good morning. How was your weekend?
It's off to a good start. Can't complain.
So we're pausing for just a moment as we make sure that our Spanish interpretation is, everything's ready to go. John, if you could just let me know when that's ready.
Absolutely, Chair. Maria is currently calling to double check, and I'm emailing as well.
So I contacted our contact with the interpretation services, and she is going to contact the second Spanish interpreter and see if they are allowed.
So I wonder, Sean and Maria, if it would be okay with you if we get started and I can do the introduction, we can go through the slides as you're doing that. Does that work?
That should be totally fine, Chair, as long as we don't go past like 15, 20 minutes for that second interpreter. That should be totally fine.
Oh, that's right. So why don't let's wait just a few more minutes. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We're going to start in just about 2 more minutes. We need to make sure that we have language interpretation available. So please bear with us. We'll start at 10 after the hour, 10 minutes after 10. Thanks.
Maria, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm not sure what's happened. One of my devices just stopped connecting, so I've changed to another device. So, okay, well, we're here.
Yes, I hear you and I see you just fine.
Thank you for your patience, everyone. And I'd like to just say good morning. I'm Sarah Augustine, Chair of the Washington State Redistricting Commission. I would like to welcome everyone to this public outreach meeting, the 11th one of this 2021 redistricting cycle. The topic of discussion today is Congressional Districts 1 and 2 and the legislative districts included within the first and the second. I'll have more to say about that later, but first, let's kick things off with a video message from the commissioners. Maria? Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Augustine. I'm the chair of the Washington State Redistricting. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Augustine. I'm the chair of the Washington State Redistricting Commission, recently chosen by the 4 voting members of the commission to facilitate and to lead this effort.
Hello, everyone. I'm Commissioner April Sims.
I'm Commissioner Joe Fain.
I'm Commissioner Brady Pinheiro-Walkinshaw.
I'm Commissioner Paul Graves. I'm one of 4 voting members recently appointed by the state legislative leadership of the Washington State Redistricting Commission.
Once a decade, we redraw our congressional and state legislative district boundaries using data the Census Bureau collected last year, reflecting changes made to the population in the last 10 years.
States across the nation handle redistricting in different ways.
In Washington, the state constitution and law establish an independent redistricting commission.
As commission members, we've committed ourselves to a process that is open,
transparent,
and credible.
These maps will belong to all the people of Washington.
With that in mind, we encourage you to help us draw your WA.
The commission will hold virtual public outreach meetings focused on populations residing in each of Washington's 10 congressional districts,
as well as additional outreach meetings to be scheduled soon.
Live Spanish and American Sign Language interpretations will be available for each of these meetings.
With your unique insights about the community, we will work to ensure a credible redistricting process resulting in maps reflecting fair representation for all Washingtonians.
Please take part. After all, it's really your map.
So come help us draw your WA.
Help us draw our WA.
Come help us draw your WA.
So please help us draw your WA.
Thank you, Maria. We are having difficulty with our Spanish language interpretation this morning, and staff are working on that as we go along. So we may have limited Spanish language interpretation or interrupted Spanish language interpretation. We appreciate your patience, and we will work to ensure that Spanish language will be provided for the portions that perhaps have not been where interpretation wasn't provided live. All right, to maximize the number of opportunities for public comment, the second round of public comment will be hosted by bipartisan dyads like today's meeting, or one commissioner from each party will be present. We did this to ensure that residents of each congressional district will have at least 2 opportunities for public comment. All comments heard this morning will be recorded into the official record and will be reviewed by all 4 voting commissioners. This morning, we will be joined by Commissioner Sims and Commissioner Fain. For those of you from the public joining us today, welcome again. It's my goal as chair to facilitate a process that is as participatory, fair, and equitable as possible. I will endeavor to engage communities across Washington as fully as I can and to hear and address your concerns and requests. Throughout our tenure as commissioners, we will hear public comments that are important. We will listen to you. I will do my best to synthesize the comments, and we will endeavor to respond as we are able. So it is possible that you will bring forward in your public comments, ideas, requests, and injustices that we may not be able to address. We will certainly deliberate on the issues where we have jurisdiction. Where we don't, I will do my best to refer you to those who may be able to respond more effectively. Now I'd like to review the purpose and values of the commission. Together as a commission, we've agreed to provide an open, transparent, credible process that is grounded in statute and where all voices are welcome and there is access for everyone. To conduct ourselves with transparency, respect, and civility, where commissioners will participate and negotiate in good faith, and to meet the deadline outlined by law and produce the best possible maps. You may be aware that because of the pandemic, the redistricting cycle promises to be a challenging one. While we should have received the data from the Census Bureau that we need to begin to redistrict by April 1st of this year, we don't expect to have that data until mid-August. Nonetheless, in April, the Census Bureau did deliver to the President and the nation the apportionment data, which told us which states would gain seats in the US Congress at Electoral College and which would not. Based on that data, we know that in the last decade, the population of our state grew by 14.6% and added approximately 1 million residents. Despite that population growth, it did not change the number of congressional seats we are entitled to. Washington will continue to have 10 representatives in the US House of Representatives. Based on the population growth in the state, our job as the Redistricting Commission is to distribute as equally as is practical the population among 10 congressional districts and 49 legislative districts. Based on the census data from April, Washington had a population of 7,705,281 residents as of April 1st, 2020. Therefore, we need to draw 10 new congressional districts that are compact, contiguous, and convenient, and made up of approximately 770,528 residents, and 49 new legislative districts that are also compact, contiguous, and convenient, and made up of approximately 157,251 residents. Statute also instructs us, in as much as it is practical, to minimize drawing district lines that cut through counties, municipalities, or communities of interest. And the Commission is committed to applying these principles while we try to create equally proportioned districts. So while we know the overall population of the state according to the census, we don't yet know the particulars of percentage growth across neighborhoods, towns, cities, and counties. State population estimates of the last 10 years do give us a relatively good idea of where our 7.7 million residents live and which districts will need to get larger in area to add more residents and which districts will need to get smaller in order to shed residents. And as we add or subtract neighborhoods from one district, it will cause the need to make corresponding adjustments to the neighboring districts. To show you broadly, Maria, can you put up the first map? This map shows Washington State and its 10 congressional districts. The darker the brown colors, the more the district needs to grow in size, and the darker the teal colors, the more the district needs to shrink in size. So, regarding the topic of discussion today, the 1st and 2nd congressional districts. The map indicates that the 1st congressional district, according to state population estimates, currently has more than the needed 770,000 residents to make it proportional. It will need to give up some of its residents. The 2nd congressional district currently has slightly more residents than the 770,000 residents to make it proportional. Depending on the final number we get from the Census Bureau, it looks like this congressional district may need to shed a few residents. Now, next slide, please, Maria. The 1st congressional district includes parts of legislative districts 5, 10, 39, 40, 42, and 44. The 2nd congressional district includes all of legislative district 38 and parts of legislative districts 10, 21, 39, 40, 42, and 44. Based on the state population estimates, we can see that the 5th, 21st, 39th, 42nd, and 44th have more than the 157,000 residents in the districts. They'll have to give up some residents. While the 10th, 38th, and 40th have less than the needed 157,000, then they'll need to grow to absorb some more residents. Now, next slide, please, Maria. Here is a zoomed in map of the southern portion of the 1st congressional district. Here, you can see that the 1st congressional district also includes parts of legislative districts 1, 45, 46, and 48. Based on state population estimates, we can see that the 1st, 45th, and 48th have more than the 157,000 residents in the districts, meaning they will have to lose some of their residents, while the 46th has less than the needed 157,000, meaning it will have to grow to absorb some more residents. Finally, next slide, please, Maria. Here is a zoomed in map of the southern portion of the 2nd congressional district. Here, you can see that the 2nd congressional district also includes parts of legislative districts 1, 21, 32, and 44. Based on state population estimates, we can see that the 1st, 21st, and the 44th have more than the 157,000 residents in the districts, meaning they will have to lose some of their residents, while the 32nd has less than the needed 157,000, meaning it will have to grow to absorb some residents. Thank you, Maria. So that's just a brief overview of the challenge that your redistricting commission faces this year. In essence, commissioners have to create a new puzzle out of the state. And the puzzle pieces have to contain nearly exactly the same population. As we make one puzzle piece smaller, its adjacent puzzle pieces will need to absorb those additional areas, meaning that every time a boundary is moved, it creates a cascade of changes in surrounding districts. So the purpose of our meeting today is to listen to your input about your community and how to ensure that the districts are fairly balanced in terms of population, but also respect shared community interests. The commission may not be able to meet every interest, But as commissioners try to weigh the trade-offs inherent in this process, your opinions are welcome and necessary. As of yesterday afternoon, we had nearly 40 individuals signed up to testify. We're going to invite individuals in groups of 4 to testify. Each individual will have 2 minutes to offer their comments. After 4 people have testified, we will see if the commissioners have any questions of the 4 testifiers, and then we will move on to the next group of testifiers. With that summary, Sean, let's begin. Please call the first panel.
Good morning, commissioners. Our first panel will be Jay Arnold, Julie Winchell, Martin Gibbons, and then Nancy Zhang. All of this panel is from the 1st Congressional District. And we'll go through the 1st Congressional District and then we'll move on to the 2nd. So with that being said, I see Julie as unmuted. If you can turn on your video and begin your testimony.
Hi, thank you for the work you're doing and for listening to our comments. My name is Julie Winchell. For the past 33 years, I've lived just north of Arlington and I reside in the 39th Legislative District. The 39th District is currently not meeting 4 of your 7 criteria for redistricting. First, the 39th is not compact. It covers a huge area that makes campaigning within its boundaries both time-consuming and very expensive. Secondly, electoral competition is not encouraged in the 39th. Elections for our state senate and house seats are never close, with the winning candidate usually securing 60 to 65% of the vote. The last time a candidate I voted for actually became my representative was in 2001. Political action committees won't donate much money to the 39th district candidates aligned with their values because the PACs know the candidates can't win in the 39th. Because of this, I don't feel like my voice is being heard in Olympia. During the last legislative session, I'd write to my legislators, but I'd only hear back from one of them. They don't need to listen to me because they know their party will always win our elections. This doesn't feel like fair and effective representation. Another criterion asks you to preserve communities of interest. Arlington is not like most of the other cities in the 39th. The Arlington-Smoky Point area is exploding with both industrial and population growth. My senator lives in Cedar Woolley and my representative lives in Salton and Granite Falls. How can people from such small towns truly understand what my community is facing? Please consider putting Arlington and Mount Vernon in the same legislative district. Many of us in the Arlington area already travel there for shopping, entertainment, and medical services. Both cities are experiencing growth and situated close to I-5. Currently, residents of Mount Vernon live in 3 separate legislative districts, so putting all of the city of Mount Vernon in the 39th would solve that problem too. Thank you for listening, and I wish you well with this very difficult task.
Thank you, Ms. Winchell. We appreciate your comment. Sean?
Thank you so much. Our next testifier will be Martin Gibbons. If you can begin your testimony, please.
I am Marty Gibbons, a resident of unincorporated King County between Duval and Carnation, Washington. The opening presentation showed what a challenge this commission faces. So as you consider revising the district boundary lines, please keep intact the communities of the Snoqualmie Valley. This region shares a river, a valley, small businesses, and farms. Representation in a single district strengthens our sense of community and our sense of place. Please keep this region in one congressional district as much as possible and in 1 or 2 legislative districts. In past years, one of the commissioners, Paul Graves, represented this legislative district 5, including part of the valley. So I'm sure he understands this value. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate your time. Sean?
Thank you so much. And one of our testifiers for this panel, Jay Arnold, has left, but we will go to our final testifier for this panelist. Nancy, if you can begin.
Thank you. My name is Nancy Kelly Shank. I'm a precinct committee officer in the Silver Beach neighborhood of Bellingham. First, I would like to thank you for your time and for making these hearings available to the public. I'm sure by this time you've already spent many hours listening to citizens, and we appreciate your time and your attention. I understand that the 2020 census data will be released in September. At that time, I urge you to consider unifying the city of Bellingham into one district if possible. Bellingham is currently divided in two, with some residents of the city and surrounding areas in CD2, while others are in CD1. Same goes for the legislative districts of 40 and 42. I would argue that residents of Whatcom County and Bellingham City would be better represented by one state senator and 2 legislators rather than 6 different representatives. If it's not realistic to unite the city of Bellingham, then I would ask that you at least consider unifying certain neighborhoods that share common interests. For example, the neighborhoods of York, Sunnyland, and the lettered streets, and the Columbia neighborhoods share similar demographics and issues, and yet they're currently divided right down a residential street, splitting neighbor from neighbor in terms of representation. The Washington State League of Women Voters have studied the current maps in detail and have drawn some proposed maps. While these may not be perfect, I hope you will consider them a starting point for your discussions. Please also be aware of certain communities of interest, including the Lummi and Nooksack tribes, the Sikh community in the North Bellingham-Linden area, and the Latinx community along the Meridian Guide. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. At this time, I would like to ask the commissioners if you have questions or comments for this panel. Seeing none, I would like to thank the members of the panel and excuse you. Thanks for being here. Ron, if you would please call the next panel.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next panel will begin with the 2nd district. That was everyone who signed up for the first. So for the 2nd Congressional District, Barbara Belfour, Donnie Villasek, I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing your last name, John Amel, and then Kim Dury. If we can begin testimony with Dottie. Okay, we will instead we will begin with John Amel. If you're able to turn on your video and begin your testimony.
Good morning.
Morning.
I would like to defer my testimony until everyone else in the CD2 has gone ahead. I testified in the first round, but I do have one question I'd like to ask the commissioners, and that is how do you define contiguous with an island community? So at that point, I'll drop off and let others go ahead. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, and it'll give us a chance to reflect on that. Thanks.
Okay.
Sean, if you'd like to call the next.
Absolutely. Kim, I see your video is on. If you can begin your testimony, please. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kim Drury. I live in Langley on beautiful Whidbey Island. And are you hearing me all okay? Okay. Whidbey Island is in the 10th Legislative District in the 2nd Congressional District. The 10th District consists of all of Island County, that is both Whidbey and Camino Islands, plus parts of Snohomish and Skagit counties. 60% of our voters reside that are in the 10th District call Island County home, while the 40% remaining are in Snohomish and Skagit counties. The 10th District is most notably not a dense urban area. Much of it is rural and semi-rural. So as you debate whether to add geographic areas to the 10th District, I understand that your goal is to retain community connections as much as possible. With that in mind, I would encourage you to especially consider how much our district's quality of life, our economy, and our economy is defined by its proximity to Puget Sound. For example, ferries. Much of our district, much of our population is absolutely dependent on ferry service, as is our economy. We need reliable, convenient, and affordable ferry service. Otherwise, I mean, that just defines who we are and much of this district. We're also defined by how much shoreline we have. The 10th district has 250 miles of shorelines, more than any other district in the state. These are environmentally sensitive areas. And over the next decade, climate change will have a big impact on these shorelines, not only on the ecosystems, but rising sea levels that will affect our coastal communities and how we manage for those rising sea levels. They'll have a huge impact. Climate change will also affect our water supply. Of course, climate change doesn't just affect the 10th district, it affects.
I apologize, Ms. Jury, your time has elapsed, and we look forward to seeing your full comment in writing if you'd like to send it to our email. And at the end of this panel, you'll have the opportunity to respond to questions by the commissioners. Juan, if you call the next testifier, please.
Of course, Chair. Our last testifier for this panel will be Dottie. If you can begin your testimony, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Dottie Villasvik, and I live in the 2nd Congressional District in the 38th Legislative District. Since this is really basically new to me, I just want to commend all of you for being willing to take on this awesome task. My interests would vary from, I was born on the Navajo Indian Reservation. I've lived in the Mount Macaw Indian Reservation. I am Caucasian, but I have an interest for the indigenous people and for all minorities. I'm interested in the fact that you only have English and Spanish translation, when we have many other, I live in the Hawthorne Elementary School District here in North Everett, where there are many different languages that are spoken in our schools. So I'm concerned about the people who speak other languages other than English. I'm going to close with that and just say thank you for the opportunity just to say I'm cheering for you, and we'll be watching you and following all your work. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I will ask the commissioners if you have questions or comments for Ms. Diaz. Commissioner Fain?
Yes, I would just wanted to respond to John's question really quick, where traditionally contiguous for island communities relates to year-round transportation service. So wherever there's dependable means of commuting to and from an island, oftentimes that's something that that is looked upon as being contiguous.
Okay, I would like to comment on the last testifier and just provide this information to you. Any Washington State resident can request interpretation for a public meeting with adequate time, and the instructions to do that are on our website. So we provide Spanish language interpretation service regardless of request, because it is the 2nd most spoken language in the state. However, any language can be requested, and we will provide that for a public meeting if and as it's requested.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? All right, thank you. I'd like to thank both members of the panel and you. Sean, if you would please call the next panel.
Of course, Chair. Our next panel will again be from the 2nd Congressional District. We will start with Kit Muleham, Mary Holland, I'm sorry, Valerie Roseman, and then Bill Sheets.
You would call the first speaker, please.
Yes, the first person who's popped up is Bill Sheets. If you can turn on your video, unmute yourself, and begin your testimony, please.
Hello, thank you, commissioners. My name is Bill Sheets. I live in the 38th Legislative District in the city of Everett. And I just have a brief comment. I would just like to speak in favor of keeping the communities of the 38th District together as much as possible. Specifically, the primary communities are Everett, Tulalip, and Marysville. There's a strong connection between all three of these communities. Many of the children from Tulalip attend schools in Marysville, and it's just it's a natural connection. And I would just like to make sure that that connection is maintained and left intact in the redistricting. It looks like the 38th may need to grow a little bit. So there's obviously there's three ways we can grow. We can't grow west, but we can grow north, south, or east. So whatever winds up happening, I would just like to speak in favor of keeping Everett, Tulalip, and Marysville together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Kit, I see your video is on. You're unmuted, so if you can begin your testimony, please.
Thank you. My name is Kit Muehlman. Thank you, Commissioners, staff support, and fellow testifiers. I'm from South Bellingham in the 40th District. So Commissioners, you have a difficult job, which I've heard described as balancing billiard balls in a bowl. So our voting method divides us into districts. In each district, the largest voting block elects 2 state representatives and 1 state senator. And that leaves the minority in each district frustrated. So my ideal would be to combine 2 or 3 districts and elect representatives with some sort of proportional representation voting method. So with combined districts, you'd have fewer lines to draw and it would be easier to keep communities of interest together. But that would require a change in state law. So we're back to 49 districts for now. So I'd like to focus on one of the stated goals: to provide fair and effective representation and encourage electoral competition. So Bellingham is currently split into 2 districts, the LD40 and LD42. And I'm in favor of continuing that because it creates more electoral competition. Now, the 40th and 42nd districts join urban and rural areas. We have some different interests, but we're also neighbors. We share the same rivers, we use the same highways. The urban residents buy rural products and the rural residents shop in urban areas. But I echo Nancy Shemp's comment about keeping local neighborhoods together. So the more we keep our political landscape competitive, the more candidates and representatives are encouraged to reach out to a broader set of voters. So as you move the billiard balls, there will be times when it makes sense to create more homogeneous districts. But when it comes to Bellingham, I suggest more competition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Sean, if you would call the next speaker, please.
Of course. Mary, I see your video's on. You're unmuted. If you can begin your testimony, please.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chair Augustine. My name is Mary Holland, and I live on Whidbey Island in Legislative District number 10. My community of interest is the peoples of the Salish Sea shorelines, specifically Island County, that's all of Whidbey Island and Camino Islands, and the nearby western-facing mainland shores that border the adjacent waters. It doesn't include the San Juan Islands or Anacortes, and that makes sense to me. Ours is a predominantly rural area with a few small towns and cities. Our inclusion of certain cities such as Stanwood and Mukilteo is critical. We have farms, fisheries, recreational areas such as Deception Pass State Park and the Eby's Landing National Historical Reserve and Naval Air Station Whidbey Island. We support the Pacific Flyway of migratory birds important to our culture. Tulalip tribal lands are part of the community as we share agricultural, cultural, and historical reliance on the natural environment and the concern for creatures of the nearby sea. And the Tulalip Reservation should be included in one legislative district. State ferry transportation is essential to the is an essential feature of my community. Dividing my community would risk this vital link to the services, employment, commerce, healthcare, and recreation shared by all of us, especially between Mukilteo and Whidbey Island. I encourage you to consider this request as you finalize your decision for Legislative District 10. The peoples of the Salish Sea shoreline should not be divided. Thank you for your work and consideration of this request.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Sean, if you'd call the last testifier, please.
Absolutely, Chair. The last testifier for this panel will be Mary Holland. If you can, oh, I'm sorry, not Mary Holland. You just went. Valerie, I see you just turned your video on. Thank you so much. If you can begin your testimony.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Valerie Roseman. I'm a resident of Briar, and I also currently serve on the Briar City Council and the Edmonds PTA Council. I wanted to thank the commissioners for their time and for creating this listening space. I will speak to you today on 2 points this morning. First, regarding the city of Briar, and second, regarding Edmonds School District. So Briar's on the southern border of Snohomish County, and during this past districting cycle, it's been fully contained in the 1st legislative district and the 2nd congressional district. The city, however, is on the border of both districts, and so we are conscious that these borders may change, and we hope to share with you a few points that you might consider as you review options. So Briar and Mount Lake Terrace, a portion of Mount Lake Terrace, are both currently in the 1st legislative district. There was an earlier testifier who mentioned that Mount Lake Terrace is split currently between 2 districts. And I would back what she was saying, that Briar and Mount Lake Terrace are closely related. Our children attend schools in both communities. There's elementary schools, of course, in both communities, but then the middle school is in Briar and the high school is in Mount Lake Terrace. And so there's a large continuity of relationships between these 2 cities in that regard. Briar does have a small portion of our students who attend North Shore schools, so there's also a similar continuity, but not as significant with the Kenmore area and North Shore School District. So Briar has greater similarities with our unincorporated areas of southern Snohomish County north of us than we do with areas of northern King County. So as you're considering shifting those borders, we ask you to take that into consideration. Finally, our city officials and staff have greater connection with Snohomish County cities than we do with King County cities. We thought that was significant to point out, just as we are on that border, and currently the 1st legislative district does include parts of King County. And then second point, regarding the Edmonds School District, currently the Edmonds.
I apologize that your time has elapsed, and so we look forward to seeing your full comments via email if you'd be so good as to submit those. This, I think, concludes the panel. Is that right, Sean? Okay.
It does, Chair.
So at this time, I'd like to ask the voting commissioners if you have comments or questions for the members of this panel. Commissioner Fain?
Yeah, I was just going to invite Councilmember Roseman to finish her comments briefly with regards to the school district.
Please.
Sure, I'll be very fast. My apologies. It's currently split between the 1st, 21st, 32nd, and 44th. PTAs and other parent organizations often provide opportunities for training parents in legislative advocacy and processes. And we would ask that if the district is to continue to be split between 4 districts, we look at having a more significant number of residences in that 4th district. Currently, the 44th is just a few number of streets, and it's not a significant number of residents that can band together to advocate as a group. Thank you for allowing me to finish my comments.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from the commissioners? All right. I'd like to thank the members of the panel. Thanks for being here with us, and you're excused. Ron, if you would please call the next panel.
Of course, Chair. Our next panel will continue with the 2nd district. We will begin with Kelly Wright, Craig Sear, Sharon Holt, and then we will go to Bill Buchanan, and they did not state their legislative district or congressional district. And we were waiting for them to transfer.
I'm sorry, how do you transfer?
I should, there you are.
Okay.
Craig, if you want to begin your testimony, please.
Thank you very much. Are you able to hear me?
I am.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to testify. I echo the thanks of everyone else.
Will you please state your name for the record? Thank you.
Righto. My name is Craig Sear. I'm a council member from the city of Langley on Whidbey Island. Again, living in the city of Langley, I want to thank the redistricting commissioners for setting up this listening session. As everyone else has said, you have a tough task. I would especially like to echo the comments of Mary Holland, who spoke a minute ago. I'm not going to repeat what she said, but I've definitely want to say that the coastal communities of the Salish Sea and within the 10th district should be brought together to the extent that they are not, and that relationship be maintained. And for an additional reason, in Langley, we have a citizens board called the Dismantling Systemic Racism Commission, and we are actively looking at our city processes and engaging in relationships with other coastal communities. And it's so important that we not be divided. We'll be stronger if we are joined with those communities within the 10th legislative district. So to the extent that you can bring us together, please do so, because it will make it more possible for us to dismantle systemic racism, which is the focus of the city of Langley, and we hope all across the 10th legislative district. And I'm going to give you back 30 seconds. Thanks so much for listening to me this morning.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your time. Sean, if you call the next testifier, please.
Absolutely, Chair. I will next go to Bill Buchanan. I see your video's on. If you can unmute yourself and begin your testimony, please.
So mute is in the lower left hand of your screen, typically.
And as Bill unmutes himself, I will next go to Kelly Wright. If you can unmute yourself, turn on your video and begin your testimony.
I don't know if you're still waiting for Bo Buchanan.
Kelly, you can go ahead.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't have a camera on this computer, but I appreciate your listening to me today. My name is Kelly Wright. I'm from Marysville, Washington, where I've lived for, well, almost 20 years now. I really wanted to speak to keeping together communities of interest, and most importantly, to not divide the city of Marysville from the Tulalip Reservation. We are one zip code, one post office anyway, and our school district is very much integrated as well between, you know, the tribe and the city. And there are a lot of natural tensions that would divide these two communities and have historically. And we've made great efforts to come together. And part of that has been fostered by the fact that, particularly in the 2nd Congressional District, that we have been part of the same political entity, because we are truly a community of interest. If you were to divide us, and you know, the great concrete wall of Interstate 5 is already a barrier that has to be overcome. And I really want to encourage you to keep us together as a community, to allow us to continue to go forward, building ourselves as a community of a city on one side of the freeway and the reservation and the First Nation on the other side, as one community that lives, works together, and has a common community of interest. So please don't split up, you know, don't split Tulalip from the city of Marysville. While we've had a great opportunity to come together in the 2nd Congressional District, the poor city of Marysville has really suffered the entire time I've lived there of being divided between sometimes 4, sometimes more legislative districts. And it would be great to bring us together, but I would not want to try and lump every precinct of Marysville together if it costs us our association with the Tulalip Reservation and the other side. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate your time. Sean, if you'd like to call the next testifier, please.
Yes, our next testifier will be Sharon Holt. I see your video's on. If you can unmute yourself and begin your testimony, please.
Hi, my name is Sharon Holt, and I'm a Linwood resident of over 25 years. I am born and raised here in Seattle, Washington. My husband graduated from Ballard High School. I graduated from Shorecrest. We moved to the Linwood area to we thought, move out a little out of the city, and because we wanted to look for schools for our children. The entire time that we've lived in Linwood, and I apologize for the noise, we're in actually a car. The entire time that we've lived in Linwood, I've been active in the community and have noticed that the communities of Linwood and Edmonds and Mukilteo have all had common interests. And one of those is the school district. We are in Linwood City, actually unincorporated, but the district that we're in now, the district is 21, LD 21, and the district actually has been thriving from a point of view of the mayors that I've spoken to, all the way to Everett. We have a small portion of Everett, Cassie Franklin, Mukilteo, Jennifer Gregerson, and the other two mayors. What I did was I surveyed people in the 21st district to see if there were any concerns. We have grown, so we know the edges of our cookie cutter shaped district may change, but the overwhelming reaction of most of the members of the community that I interviewed said they liked our voting 21st district. We're hoping that it wouldn't be impacted as it was severely by our last redistricting, when the entire large groups of people went down to the south in the 32nd, and I myself was redistricted from the 1st into the 21st. So basically, it's kind of like the 21st might be a little easier to deal with if it was just left the way it was.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that your time has elapsed, and so we look forward to hearing your full comment in writing if you're willing to submit it. Thank you. Sean, if you would call the final speaker.
Yeah, the final speaker for this panel is Bill Buchanan. Bill, I see you've unmuted yourself. If you can begin your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Bill Buchanan. Although I recently moved to District 6, I grew up on Orcas Island, graduated from Burlington Edison, and my roots are in District 2. I appreciate having a fair and non-political redistricting process. My emphasis today is on congressional districts rather than legislative, keeping counties whole to the maximum extent possible in districts that are compact and easily and logically connected by the highway system. My proposal changes District 1 and 2 from elongated north-south to more compact east-west ones. The current District 1 is particularly unwieldy, spanning 4 counties in what amounts to separate disconnected strips. Public outreach comments share many complaints about how the current 1-2 boundary adversely affects the Bellingham and Mount Vernon areas. Keeping Whatcom and Skagit counties whole and in the same district, along with Island, San Juan, and much of northwestern Snohomish County is needed to reach the district population target, would relieve this tangle. The remaining South Snohomish plus Northwest King would then populate a like-oriented compact district of North Metro economic interests. Snohomish County, our third largest, is lucky to have any resident representative, and that one's interests are mostly northwest of the county. I wonder how many of Washington's citizens realize that the current representatives of District 1, 8, and 9 all live within a 15-mile cluster in East Lake King County. Why should we try to keep counties as whole as possible? Each county has their own political party organizations. Citizens take pride in their counties. People do not like to be jammed into illogical configurations just to meet the terms of some obscure theory. Keep our districts compact, contiguous, convenient, and sensible. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time and your input. At this time, I'd like to ask the commissioners if they have comments or questions for the panelists. Okay, seeing none, I'd like to thank you, members of the panel, for choosing to be here with us and for sharing your point of view with us. We really appreciate your input. And you're excused. Sean, if you please call the next panel.
Of course, Chair. Our next panel, we will begin with Donna Fontaine, Donna Luce, Catherine Schultz, and then Laura Brownlee. If we can begin with Donna Fontaine, if you can turn your video on and begin your testimony, please. Okay, we will move on to Donna Luce. If you can turn on your video, unmute yourself and begin your testimony. And then Catherine Schultz, if you can turn on your video, unmute yourself and begin your testimony, please.
Hello, good morning, Commission. My name is Katie Stoltz. I use she, her pronouns. I'm zooming in today from Lake City in North Seattle. I've been a lifelong resident of Western Washington. It's good to see you all again this morning for this kickoff of the second round of hearings. I'm joining today as a representative with the Redistricting Justice for Washington Coalition. You've heard from many of us before, but we're a group of organizations from across the state that have been advocating for an accessible, transparent, and equitable redistricting process over the past 2 years. Thank you so much for the Commission's commitment to public engagement and opening this space for public comment, especially with this second round to come back and hear from the community. Our coalition has had 3 core priorities since the beginning: keeping Indigenous nations together as a prioritized and protected community interest, maximizing majority people of color districts, and keeping communities' interests together. Specifically, I'm here today to lift up the community feedback we heard during a Snohomish listening session in June to educate local residents about the redistricting process and hear feedback. We know that it's a crucial way to get folks engaged in the process. Many of those folks could not be here this morning, and so I wanted to make sure to lift up what we heard. We heard majority support from a group of the attendees for the creation of a majority people of color legislative district in the heart of Congressional District 2. By bringing together Linwood, North Linwood, and South Everett, we have an opportunity to create a majority people of color legislative district for the first time in Congressional District 2. We know that it's important that we have majority POC districts so that communities of color have a voice in our government. And so I will follow up with a copy of this proposed map so you can see specifically where this legislative district would be created. Also lifting up that this proposal fully contains the Tulalip Reservation in one legislative district, which is a top priority for our coalition. Thank you all for the time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We really appreciate taking the time to be here with us this morning. John, if you'd call the next testifier, please.
Yes, Chair. I will again call on Donna Luce. If you can turn on your video and begin your testimony. And then Donna Fontaine, if you are also available. And not seeing any reaction, we will come back to John Amel. If you can begin your testimony, please.
I have nothing else to add. I think the other representatives from LD10 and CD2 have done very well. So thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. I'm getting no reaction from the other 2 testifiers, Chair, and that would be the last in our list.
So I understand you to say, Sean, that this is the final panel. Is that right?
This is the final panel, and the last 2 panelists on this panel are not reacting to being prompted verbally and then asking them to unmute through Zoom.
Okay, thank you. And so at this time then, I would like to ask the commissioners if they have questions or comments for the people on this panel. Okay, seeing none, I would like to excuse the members of the panel. Oh, sorry,
Actually,
Commissioner Sims,
I'm
please.
sorry. Did I understand that this is the final panel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well then I just wanted to take a moment and thank all of the folks who turned out this morning.
Sure. I'm sorry, Commissioner Sims. I will give you an opportunity to make concluding remarks at the end of this.
Fantastic.
Once we conclude the panel. Thank you.
Thank
sorry
you.
about that. So why don't we excuse the panel and thank you for being here again. We really appreciate your time and your testimony this morning. And at this time, I would like to offer the commissioners an opportunity to make concluding remarks, beginning with Commissioner Sims.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to take a moment to thank all the folks that turned out this morning to provide thoughtful feedback and commentary. We are getting closer and closer to getting the data, the census data that we're all waiting for, and just want to encourage folks to keep their eyes open for that data and to submit proposed maps so that we have a fuller understanding of some of the concepts and ideas that folks have shared today. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Sims. Commissioner Fain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just echo Commissioner Sims' comments. It's great to have so many folks participate on a beautiful Saturday via Zoom, and to also echo the request for folks to go online and use our map drawing tool to submit those in. We'll be getting the data soon, and we'll be spending a lot of time looking over maps. We'd like to look over yours.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to thank the Redistricting Commission staff for your efforts in making this meeting possible. Thank you also to our American Sign Language interpreters who make it possible for us to bring this important hearing to the public. I would also like to thank our Spanish language interpreters. Thank you for your service and for being here. Finally, I would like to thank members of the public. Thank you for your time and for your effort, for the knowledge that you bring, and for the advocacy for your own community. We appreciate you. This process is so vital for the democratic process in the state of Washington, and we appreciate you participating in it on behalf of all members of Washington State. And then I did forget a vital group of people to thank, a vital group, which is the commissioners. Thank you very much, Commissioner Fain and Commissioner Sims, for choosing to commit your time to this important process over 2021. Thanks very much, everyone. This session is now